Hi guys, I just deleted my entire Ravelry queue. Let me tell you why and what I'm doing instead. So I just deleted my Ravelry queue, all 145 items on that queue. So that list of 145 items has been there for years in some cases. Some things I added recently, but a lot of the projects that have been on that list have been there for literally years, like since Ravelry first started. And I found that list was becoming extremely reactionary for me. Every time I saw something that was very cool or very interesting or very exciting, then I would just add it to the queue. And then I wouldn't ever take time to review it or think about it or anything like that. And so I know coming out of Knit City a couple of weeks ago, I left with nothing but inspiration of what to make next. Oh, all the things that I wanted to add to my list. So like a couple of times in that Knit City recap, I looked at the So Close shawl. I want to make that. I looked at that Fair Isle sweater that was designed by Jared Flood. I want to make that. And so many things that I want to make. But I add them without really thinking too much about how long all of those things are going to take. And so that list started to grow and grow and grow. And it just kind of became a holding place for, all the someday, maybe, possibly someday when I get around to it kind of items were on that list. So I know that I'm perhaps a little bit intense about this, but I really want for my time spent making to be meaningful to me. It has to be more than just like a fun, easy, relaxing way to pass the time. Because if I wanted to just pass the time and enjoy that time, I might just play video games. But I actually want to come out of that time at the end with something that I've created, something that has meaning and purpose to me, at least. So what I did was I did a big, giant brain dump of basically everything that I want to do, want to learn, want to make. And I made a mind map. I know it's a little bit nerdy, but that's what I did. Because like you, I'm a little bit of a multi-craftual person. So I don't just knit, but I also spin and I also dye and I also weave and I have interests in all of these different fiber arts. And so ultimately what I wanted to do was to look at each area that I wanted to spend time in and figure out what it is about those areas that I wanted to learn. So when I think about dyeing, it's not just about, oh, I want to do more acid dyeing on protein fibers. I mean, within the whole world of dyeing, I'm also interested in natural dyeing and indigo dyeing and making your own indigo vat in Procyon fiber reactive dyes. I'm interested in learning how to hand paint cotton warps. I'm interested in learning how to do shibori dyeing. Like there's so many things inside of the idea of dyeing that I haven't even had time to really work through or really explore. I did a couple of years ago, but it's all very, sporadic. It's like you follow this thing, this shiny object, and then you follow that shiny object, and there's so many things that you could spending time doing. So whenever I think about it, it's if I spend 10 hours making this thing, then that's 10 hours away from time that you could be spending doing the dyeing or something like that. So it's basically all about priorities and planning. So really what I want to do after having done this big brain dump and mind map is really look at all of the range of all the projects that I want to work on and work through them, looking at them through these 5 filters or these 5 different lenses, really. Like looking at each one, turning it over and seeing if it fits in with what I need or what I would like to get out of my making experience. So the first filter is that you only have limited time. There's only so much time in the day that you could spend working on anything. If I had 145 different projects in my Ravelry queue, when I calculated it out, if I were to take a rough estimate of say, it would take me 3 months to make each project because, some projects were more complicated. Some of them were complex lace things that I wanted to make. Others were full on garments. And then other things were like very small, quick, easy, mittens or socks or things like that. And so some things would take longer and some things would take a less amount of time. But overall, let's just say each thing took 3 months to make. 145 items in my queue. I calculated it out to be, it would take 36 and a quarter years, 36 and a quarter years for me to be able to work through that Ravelry queue. So that's a long time. And that's not considering all the other things that you might want to add to your plate as well. You know, all the cool and wonderful, inspiring, shiny objects that come along your plate, like every day. So if it takes 36 years for me to work through my Ravelry queue, the question is, are all those projects really worth that time, worth doing? And so, yeah, you have to think about the time that you spend working on any particular project is time that you're not going to be able to spend working on something else. So that's the first criteria. The second criteria is this idea of purpose. What are you trying to get out of your craft time? At the end of the day, what is it that you want for your crafting time to have done for you? For me, I really want to constantly be challenging myself to get to the next level, to learn a little bit more, to improve my techniques, to improve my skills and abilities, to constantly be pushing my knowledge, pushing my understanding. I just want to always be learning more. So basically, I want to make sure that whatever I'm putting back on my plate, I'm picking projects that help push me further along in this journey of learning things and learning new skills and techniques. The third filter or criteria is this idea of focus. So maybe you're like me, where you are interested in lots of different aspects of this fiber arts world, right? So you might be interested in spinning and knitting and weaving or whatever it is. I know that I want to learn a lot of different things, but for me, it's not about specifically the handwork techniques that are involved in each one of these fiber arts. So learn a new stitch pattern or a new way to cast on or a new way to bind off, all of those techniques, all of that stuff is great, but that's not personally where I want to go, and it's not enough to satisfy me, I guess. So where I want to go and where I want to focus is more on the idea of how you can design color in a way that it can transport you or transform you or mesmerize you. Like, I'm really wanting to learn about color interactions, how you put them together in different fiber arts in order to create that feeling. How can it transport you? That's what I'm trying to get to. So my focus with making things is figuring out how all those colors can work together to help tell a story. Like, what's the story you're trying to tell? Is your story about quiet reflection? Is it a story about confidence and ambition? Is your story about wanderlust? Is your story about mourning? Is your story about joy? Whatever the story is, how can you tell that story through color? And so that's where I'm trying to focus a lot of my thinking and a lot of my creative energy. The fourth idea is this idea of skill. Are the projects that you choose going to help improve or affect your skill and ability? Or are they going to challenge you? So perhaps the story that I want to tell through the things that I make happens to be something that requires me to spin frog hair, spin the finest possible yarn possible, and then weave it at, say, 120 ends per inch. That's like 120 threads in the span of an inch. Is that what I need to learn how to do? So if I'm right now weaving things that are 10 ends per inch or 12 ends per inch or 24 ends per inch, and I feel comfortable doing that, to jump from 24 to say 120, that might be a bit daunting, a little bit scary. So maybe I look at projects that push me just a little bit beyond what I'm comfortable with. Maybe I go from 24 to 48, or maybe from 48 to 60, and then make another jump to 120 ends per inch. All of these things, you can relate it back to your knitting, like if it's something that requires you to know X amount of skill, maybe choose a project that goes and pushes your boundaries and encourages you to learn another stitch that you've never learned before, or another way of holding yarns if you're doing color work that you've never done before. Just something that will move you away from your comfort zone, wherever you're at right now. Hubert recently reminded me of something that I said years ago, and I don't remember saying it, but now I'm thinking about it constantly. But it's the idea that if you're not ever moving forward, you're actually moving backwards. You just can't stay in the same spot. Well, at least for me, I just don't want to stay in the same spot. I want to always be moving forward, and always be learning something new and something, what's next? So this last filter is the idea of context. I hear this all the time, that you should have different projects for different places and different situations. Sometimes you have projects that require you to be in a certain place at a certain time. Like for example, I have these big weaving looms in this attic here. I can only weave on them when I have time and space and ability to be in this room, physically in this room. If I want to be downstairs watching TV, I can't be bringing these looms downstairs with me. I mean, I cannot physically drag these looms with me to the grocery store or the doctor's office or, sitting in the side of the passenger side of the car. Like I can't be weaving or doing those things while I'm doing all these other things. But I could be knitting at all those given times. So bringing around a really portable thing like a knitting project, like a sock or a shawl, that's a great idea. That's a great project to have on your list. Always carry a sock in your purse or something like that. I know that the Hohi mystery shawl that I showed in the last video, I was only able to finish it because I dragged it around with me literally everywhere. I took it with me to Arizona on a stagette. And so while we were waiting for a restaurant to seat us. I'd be knitting when we were on the plane. I'd be knitting when we were waiting for our flight. I was knitting. Sitting by the pool, I was knitting. And I was dragging my project bag everywhere. I think that the girls probably thought I was a little bit weird for bringing my knitting everywhere. But that's how I managed to finish this project that was, in my world, it's actually quite humongous. It's a big project. And so, yeah, that's how I managed to finish that shawl. So size and portability are one consideration, but another consideration is complexity. And so my other example is that a couple of years ago, I knit the peacock shawl. I think it's called the peacock feather shawl. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it was knit in lace weight yarn, and I knit it within 2 weeks for the Olympic knit along that was happening that year. And I took it with me, this ginormous lace shawl. I took it with me to a restaurant for dinner, and I tried to work the lace from memory. Like I tried to work a lace chart from memory in the dark at the restaurant. And it was not the smartest idea. And of course, I screwed it up. And then I had to pick back 400 stitches across, several rows to fix the error that I'd made. And I lost all this time because of it. And it wasn't a good choice of project to bring to a dark restaurant. Let's just say that. So that's the idea, to have projects on your list that can be worked in any different situation. So those are the 5 filters that I'm considering for all the projects that I'm going to put back on my to-do list or the to-make list. So they are all going to take into consideration the amount of time that I have, the purpose or what I want to get out of it, what my focus is, like where I want to focus my attention, how I want to build my skills, and what kind of context is involved. So there might be a project that's highly complex that requires me to be in this attic and requires me to dedicate concentrated time to spend up here. And there might be projects that are really, really quick to knit or easy or, potato chip knitting that I can sit in front of the TV and knit those. Or they might be really, really small and portable projects that I can keep in my purse and carry around with me so I can knit in the car and knit while I'm waiting for things to happen. So that's what I'm considering as I start to slowly and more thoughtfully add projects back to my project list in my Ravelry queue. I am very curious about how you guys do this. How do you manage the projects that you want to make? How do you manage the influx of inspiration and ideas that you get when you're surfing Ravelry, like when you're meeting other knitters at knit night and you see somebody wearing a beautiful thing and you're like, oh my God, I wish I could make that. How do you enter that into your list of things that you want to make and things that you want to do? I'm very curious about how you guys do this because I do things my way. I'm not sure that they're the right way, the best way, the whatever. They're just how I do them. But I would love to hear about how you guys do them. So if you have any suggestions on how to best manage your Ravelry queue, I would love to hear about it in the comments. You can just leave some comments below and I would love to see how you guys do it. And maybe we can just, maybe I can improve on my ideas. So that's it for me for this week. I hope that you enjoy these videos. If you like them, please hit like. And if you want to see more of these, please hit subscribe. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.